question is that this House has considered the matter of hate crime against the LGBT plus community. I call Elliot Colburn.
Thank you, Mrs Collins. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and can I thank the Honourable Member for Cardiff South and Penarth for bringing forward this important debate in such a timely manner with the release of the latest hate crime statistics from the Home Office. Can I say it's also a pleasure to see the Minister for Equalities, the member for Pudsey, in his place as well. I'm very grateful that he's here. I don't have a lot of time, and it's a shame because there's so much that could be said, but there's some important things that I wanted to raise in the course of this debate, adding on to what the Honourable Member for Cardiff South has already mentioned. But it comes from a starting position, Mrs Cummings, that the LGBT plus community has the same right and must have the same right to live a peaceful life as anyone else in this country. But sadly, so often, as we've seen in the latest statistics, that is not the case. And I refer to some of the work that myself and the member for Wallersley, who we are co-chairs of the APPG on global LGBT plus rights, have done in this space over the course of the past year or so. And as we've heard, the statistics that have come out, apart from being very depressing in themselves, actually are only part of the picture, because we know that there is massive underreporting going on. Last year, the police recorded 24,000 hate crimes in England and Wales linked to sexual orientation, and over 4,500 cases linked to gender identity, which is a rise of 112% and 186% respectively over the course of the last 5 years. But as a London MP, it would be remiss of me not to mention Greater London and the Casey report, not least of which some of the tragic events we've seen outside LGBT plus venues in London very recently, including in 2 breweries in Clapham not that long ago. In London alone, a city which we all assume is incredibly tolerant, hate crime has gone up by 65% against people who identify as gay or lesbian or bisexual over the last 5 years, and 129% against those who have a transgender identity. And that is not helped by a lack of trust in the police, which was identified in the Casey report into the Metropolitan Police. Now, I do welcome the steps that the new Met Commissioner is trying to take to repair that, but trust has fallen to an all-time low in London in the police, down to 64%. So I would be grateful if the Minister can outline what discussions the Home Office has had with the Metropolitan Police about the contents of the Casey report and how it intends to keep track of the quality of the improvements that the Metropolitan Police is and must make to repair its relationship with the LGBT plus community. Now, it's already been mentioned that the Home Office's own blurb that came with the publication of these statistics mentioned the very public and toxic debate around trans rights happening in this very chamber, but also across much of the media and academic space as well. Many people in this chamber today have said it, and I know that I've said it before, is that we must find a way to lead from the front and take the heat and the toxicity out of these discussions, because nobody wins. And if any political party or political candidate thinks that going into the next election on a platform of going after the LGBT plus community is a smart one, and I speak to all political parties here because we have to be honest that all of us have had issues in our parties, it's not just one, that is a misnomer, and we must all stand up to it in our own political parties and try to stamp it out as much as possible. The LGBT plus community are not our enemy, they are not a threat, and they are not dangerous. And we cannot be surprised, therefore, that trust in institutions like the police go down in such a way when these things are not stamped out. Now, equally, as the member for Cardiff South has so eloquently put, I have not been without attacks in my own constituency. I've never physically been assaulted, thankfully, but I have been on the receiving end of homophobic abuse just by going out on my day-to-day work. And sadly, I'm sure that other colleagues are going to bring up other examples of what they have experienced. And it is truly devastating. The member for Livingston said that in her intervention. It does knock it out of you. And you do wonder, why on earth are you putting myself in this position? And you do think, why should I put myself in harm's way? I don't want to hold my partner's hand in public. I don't want to show affection in public. I don't want to be my authentic self in public because I'm more worried about the attack than I am about being my authentic self. And that isn't right. In 21st century Britain, that absolutely isn't right. So again, I will gladly give way. Yeah.
And he's absolutely right. If we cow our heads and we go into the darkness, then the bigots win. And does he agree with me that there are real concerns? And an interesting article by the Bureau of Investigative Journalism found that the US Christian right, militant European Catholics, Russian Orthodox hardliners and even sanctioned oligarchs are working concerted campaigns to undermine reproductive and LGBTQ+ rights across the world. And we need to remember that when we are talking to our own colleagues and others who seek to divide liberal democracies across the world.
I'm very grateful for the Honourable Member for bringing that up, because she is absolutely right. And indeed, in the work that we have done in the APPG on global LGBT+ rights, we have seen that come out, particularly in parts of East Africa, not least of which Uganda, where the anti-homosexuality bill has recently been passed. There is massive geopolitical influence in trying to push an anti-human rights agenda, an anti-LGBT+ agenda, as a way of exerting influence, and we must be able to track where that money is going. We know that the money is coming from these actors, as she has very eloquently outlined, and we must be able to call that out and stamp that out as much as humanly possible. I don't want to go on for much longer because I'm taking up a lot of time, so I do just have a few questions to the Minister that I would be grateful if she could cover in her response. The Home Office's Hate Crime Action Plan has not been updated for years. Can she commit to updating the Hate Crime Action Plan for England and Wales? What discussions has the Home Office had with the Metropolitan Police and with other police forces about homophobia within their own forces, and how they plan to rebuild trust with the LGBT+ community? And can she offer an assurance that, despite some of the rhetoric we have heard, this is a priority for the Home Office to get right and stamp out? We were a leader, we must be a leader again in global LGBT+ rights.